We've got two speakers and a pre-recorded presentation. Unfortunately, Emma Lilly is not able to join us today, but Hazel's going to be available afterwards for some questions. So we've got Dr. Hazel Mumpasha, and she's a clinical lecturer and researcher in the University of Zambia, and she's mainly a paediatric anesthesiologist in the University Teaching Hospital and also a trustee of GADP. And that's probably underselling Hazel because she does a huge amount, and she's been very supportive and amazing throughout the time that ZADP have been in Zambia. And then Dr. Emma Lilly, who's a paediatric anaesthetist as well and works at the Royal Alexandra Children's Hospital in Brighton. She's worked in a number of different countries, including Zambia, Malawi, Namibia, and South Africa. And she's a WFSA trustee, World Anesthesia Society Committee member, and is on the International Relations Committee. And Emma has been part of ZADP from before I was involved, and has been involved in the recruitment and ZADP committee as well, and also GADP. So really looking forward to listening to their presentation about educational supervision.
Hi everyone, my name is Emma Lilly and I'm co-presenting today with Hazel Mumpasha about educational supervision within the Global Anesthesia Development Partnerships. Today we're going to cover remote educational supervision, the Educational Supervisor Buddies project, and finally we're going to talk about the Educational Supervisor course that we ran at the end of last year and where we see it going from here. So, remote educational supervisors. This was a project developed by the Royal College of Anaesthesia Global Partnerships Department in response to a need actually within our project where trainees were taking up global health fellowships in low middle income countries, and how will we best support them to meet their educational and development goals while in country. In response to this, the Global Partnerships Department developed the Remote Educational Supervisor. This is essentially an established UK educational supervisor with experience working in low middle income countries who can be best positioned to support those trainees when they go out. If you are interested in this role, I've included the hyperlink there. Please think about applying. It's a great way to get involved in international development. So it is the role of the remote educational supervisor, along with the trainee taking up the fellowship position, to set an educational agreement at the start. They should sit down and set up appraisal interviews, and this is an evolving process. It depends on the needs of the trainee, the duration of the placement, and the challenges they encounter out there. It's an opportunity to facilitate workplace-based assessments. These can be done over any virtual platform, Skype, Zoom, or any others that are your preference. It's an opportunity to encourage the trainee to get feedback during their placement, and finally, they should get you should complete an end of placement review. This is an opportunity to sum the trainees' experiences and also look at the opportunities and challenges they had so we can fine-tune the post for future. This Educational Supervisor Buddies, this is a new project the Royal College of Anaesthesia Global Partnerships has been talking about. It's very much in the early days. I'm going to give you guys a little insight, but it's still being developed. I think it is a wonderful idea. So much like the remote educational supervisors, we have found that with the development of training programs in country, we're getting an increasing number of educational leads and local faculty that haven't been formally trained in educational support. And although there are courses that can help you attend that, they're few and far between, the Royal College has looked into pairing up local educational leads with established UK educational supervisors. So much like the remote educational supervisor bank, they'll develop a bank of educational supervisors who would like to be paired up with local educational leads, so there can be a bit of shared development and co-learning. If this is something you're interested in, Maria and Rohini are around at the conference today. Please have a chat to them, or this is the link you can use. This brings us on to the Zambian Educational Supervisor course. This course has been a long time in the making. It was planned as a live course pre-COVID, and unfortunately, as a result of the pandemic, it had to be cancelled on 2 occasions. I'm delighted to say it finally ran at the end of last year as a virtual course. It was a collaboration between the Society of Anaesthetists of Zambia, the Royal College of Anaesthesia, Zambia Working Group, and the Zambian Anaesthetic Development Program. I would just like to pause at this point because there's a few people I think who deserve special mention and thanks for their contribution, namely the man in the photograph, Dr. Anthony Chisikutu. He passed away during the pandemic. He was a humble gentleman with a passion for people and a desire for excellence. I will miss his mentorship, sound advice, and kind manner. Also, Dr. Ian Geraghty. He was the Deputy Chair of the Royal College of Anaesthesia Global Partnerships Department. He guided a lot of the content of the course and freely shared his resources. And also Dr. Hazel Mampansha, whose selfless determination to help others I so admire. Thanks. And not to forget, Mrs. Maria Burke and Miss Rohini Makwana, who were helped with the logistics and did the IT driving on the day. The course was a 2-day course, and it was approved by the Royal College of Anaesthesia Training Board for 10 CPD points. The first day of the course started with an introduction, followed by the principles of supervision, both educational versus clinical, the assessment and effective feedback for trainees, a Q&A session. In the afternoon, we covered trainees in difficulty, why this might be and how to support them, a break, followed by how to effectively teach in the workplace. And this was followed by flexible teaching. This was a bit of a late addition to the agenda, but actually went down really well. I think a lot of the attendees were intrigued by the concept of flexible training and how it may work in their department. Day 2, we did a session on supported return to work for trainees after an extended leave of absence, remote educational supervision, the importance of reflective practice, the difficulties in giving feedback in challenging situations and how to do it best. This was followed by a Q&A session, and the afternoon was the meat of the course where the discussions happened. These were the workshops. We had 2 breakout rooms, one for effective feedback and the other for trainees in difficulty. The facilitators in these groups did really well in terms of bringing case-based discussions to promote conversation. It was really interesting to have a multinational cohort of attendees made for interesting discussions. This was followed by a final Q&A. There were 11 anaesthetists attending the course from 4 different countries, 6 from Zambia, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania. All the lectures were recorded and they are available on the Royal College of Anaesthesia Global Partnerships website. The feedback on the course was overwhelmingly positive. Attendees found it highly relevant and that their course expectations were met. I'm going to just pause here so you can read some of the comments that were made. As part of feedback, we also asked for advice on how we may improve the course in the future. There was a suggestion that the course should be live, as this would promote better interaction. People had issues with the timing of the course, and this was tricky as we had to take into account a few different time zones, but the course largely did run in office hours, which did mean it clashed with clinical duties. And there was a suggestion made that this course should be included as part of the MED and STP training program. moving forward from here, I do take on board the interest in a live course that may improve interaction, but it will likely come with a reduced number of faculty. It would also restrict the number of attendees to certain geographical areas, or greatly increase financial and economic and environmental costs. The virtual platform largely circumnavigates a lot of these issues, but I agree, it does lack the personal touch. Perhaps a hybrid model could offer a solution with a virtual component and a live component. Some of the course material and lectures could be pre-recorded, and that would allow candidates to cover that material at times that are suitable to them before the course, so fall outside of their clinical commitments. We could then run a live session to engage interaction, and that way a candidate, and then we could run a live session for the workshops. All these lectures will be made available on the Royal College of Anaesthesia Global Partnerships website. I'm including this because this is the reason I'm not with you today. I'm in Holland at a place called the Keukenhof, where I believe there's going to be something like this, where there are 8 million tulip blooms. It's a place I've always wanted to see, a bit of stop and smell the flowers. That's the end of our presentation. Now, I realize you haven't got to chat to Hazel yet. So Hazel is on the conference and available to answer any questions. So if you have anything, please direct it her way. I've included my email address if you want to drop me a line or ask anything. And I've included the Global Partnerships email address if you are interested in becoming a remote educational supervisor, or you require a remote educational supervisor, or you're interested in the Educational Supervisor Buddy scheme. Have a great conference. Bye.
Oh, that's great. So lovely to hear from Emma and find out a bit more about the remote educational supervision and the educational supervisor training program. Hopefully Hazel is online and is able to give us an update about how things are going and tell us a bit more about the in-country Zambian aspect and how it's going there.
Hello. Hi everyone. Thank you very much for allowing me to say something. I think I would go by saying that we are trying our best regarding educational supervision. After the course, we have seen some improvements. I think we've made strides in trying to improve on some of the tenets of educational supervision that that came through. Some of the things that we learned were things that we previously were not implementing, which we've tried to implement going forward. And I would say that is really helpful and going very well. We still have quite some challenges. Some of the challenges include the fact that we have quite a small faculty base compared to the number of trainees that we have. And also in the different centers where we're trying to offer teaching and training, the numbers of supervisors are quite variable, and so supervision can be quite variable.
Thanks, Hazel. As an educational supervisor at home, I sometimes struggle to keep up with the trainees, and it's like a lot of what was discussed earlier in the presentations. A lot of it is about well-being and how they're feeling, and just listening to them as well. And I mean, what could we do to help you? I suppose that's the main question. Is there anything that we can do to help you try and support this service or improve it over the next few years?
I think one of the things that will be really key is I think potentially the educational supervision course that Emma has presented prior to this, where we have like educational supervision buddies. I think that will come in really handy because of just the numbers that we have. We've been thinking that it would be nice to have sort of, you know, 2 educational supervisors buddying up to supervise trainees at a different goal. And then also we've received some requests from various trainees who would like to do sort of like a mixed sort of picture. And so that is something that we're trying to develop. Whereas we've been completely full-time, I think some residents would, you know, sort of want to mimic the picture that is there, that is obviously some sort of like part-time. And so this is again another thing that we think might be helpful, particularly for even like mental health, for some of the trainees and things like that. I think this is something that has come up quite a bit. So trying to develop that a little bit better is something that is going to actually be helpful. Having the ZADP fellows is something that has been really, really important and really key. And you know, potentially developing educational supervisors for people who've been through to Zambia and probably know what the situation is like, and then going back and being in a position to be actually like a remote educational supervisor, buddying up with more local supervisors, something that we think would be quite helpful.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a great idea, sort of mentoring the in-country consultants, because I know I had to do quite an extensive training package to get what we call recognition of trainer to become an educational supervisor. And some of the paperwork is relevant, some of it's not quite as relevant. So it's just working out exactly what the most relevant parts of our training packages are so that you can try and tap into them as well. And I was going to bring Maria in off Pat and just ask her how she feels the remote educational aspect is going. And I don't know whether you've got any information about sort of numbers and whether that might be a good way of drawing on a resource that we've already got.
Absolutely. Thanks, Emma. Yes, I think as Emma mentioned in the presentation that she did, the remote educational supervisor function has been running for quite a few years. In light of COVID, I guess we've all kind of had a bit of a review and kind of what's been happening and how we best go about things. But no, it seems to be going really, really well. And one of the requirements that we do have is that people who are being remote educational supervisors, 2 trainees going out, have gone through the process in the UK, as Emma's just alluded to there. So there's quite a lot of kind of background work that goes in. But the feedback that we receive both from the trainees and also from the educational supervisors themselves has been that it's a really valuable resource. And we're kind of looking to see how we might expand that and make it more applicable to a wider audience, because at the moment we're very much focused on the UK trainees going out, but we appreciate that on the ground these individuals that we have might actually be quite useful kind of more widely. So any thoughts around that would be really gratefully received, and whether kind of having that as an additional resource that the Royal College can provide. We'd be really keen to explore and hear a bit more about what everybody else's views are on that.
Thanks, Maria. That's really helpful. I think it's just getting a good pool of people, isn't it, involved? And, you know, even if they don't necessarily have to have been to Zambia, they could have been involved in other educational supervisor programs remotely. And actually, that would be really good to cross-pollinate and learn from that group in different countries. And Hazel, how are you finding it at the moment? Are you managing to allocate consultants to educational supervisor roles, or do you find that you're doing a lot of the educational supervision as well as leading the training program?
I would say that everybody is involved in really trying to sort of supervise residents and what they're doing. I think perhaps we need to move into make it a little bit more official. I think that maybe that might work out better. And I think that that was the gist of having the Zambian Education and Supervision course, so that most people who are involved, like most seniors who are available, would know, some of the things that entail being an educational supervisor. So this is something that we've had a discussion, whereas in variable people are actually involved in supervising trainees. We just now need to really find a way of making it a more formal approach, because I think I think Emma, you'll recall even from whenever we're running things like exams and we're doing ARTPs, we don't have like students who are matched with an educational supervisor, and so we find that we take the whole day really running through everything that could have been run through by an educational supervisor, who would then bring everything up to the examiners or the panel. So I think that's what I would say. So while everybody's trying to pull in, we just need to strategize a little bit better and make it more, I would say, more informative towards the people who are the educational supervisors, who would be educational supervisors for trainees.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, actually, because as an educational supervisor in the UK, that structured supervision report, so the ESSR, is the tool used at the ARCPs, because I sit on quite a lot of ARCP panels as well, and that's the tool that's really just run through very quickly by the people on the panel to make sure that all the boxes have been ticked. And it means that things are raised earlier if there's any concerns or any areas that need a bit more development for the trainees. And having that ESSR can really, really help. But I suppose it's just making sure that you have access to the right paperwork, and the college support the lifelong learning platform. But that's a whole undertaking in itself. And even with the Royal College and the resources that it has, I know that Maria won't mind me saying that sometimes that has some glitches as well. And I know that one of my ESSR reports got completely deleted by accident. So they retrieved it, thankfully. But it's a massive undertaking to try and develop something like that. And I think you're doing an incredible job with the resources and the manpower that you've got to try and develop that, because we're all anaesthetists at the end of the day. We all trained as doctors, and we did our anaesthetic training, and then suddenly we're expected to also be responsible for people's educational training and everything outside of that as well. So it's that holistic view towards the trainees. And Hazel, you were my holistic view when I was out in Zambia, and I came to you with not just clinical problems, but with other problems as well. So I think that it's just so important to recognize that we can only do so much, and we need training to be able to do the rest of it. And you and the rest of the team out in Zambia do an absolutely fantastic job. And just hearing from Mac is it's very heartwarming to hear how the training program is developing. And COVID has certainly put some more hurdles in the way, but maybe it's helped some things because we've got a bit more in the way of remote access to things as well. But again, Emma talked about trying to make things hybrid, and actually we ourselves have looked at doing this in a hybrid manner, but we know that it's so much more difficult to do that because the priority is normally to the people that are in the room, and it's just trying to make sure that everybody gets the same experience, whether they're online or face-to-face. And it was a big decision to change this to all being online, but I think it does work for the moment, and hopefully we'll be able to do a bit more international face-to-face activities in the future. And as Dylan was saying, maybe bring the GADP day in line with SAS and in line with your conference as well. And maybe we could do some educational training aspects face-to-face at that, and some breakout sessions. So I think there's lots of areas that we can look at to try and improve things. Anything else, Hazel, that you think we should know and how things are going, or you want us to be involved in?
I think, I mean, we've been doing this together for a long time. I imagine that, you know, it's always really, I mean, I just want to say that it's always really a pleasure to know that, you know, we can always go back and forth and discuss what challenges we're having, and how that each time we're able to circumvent those problems, or we're able to, you know, go at those issues together. So I think maybe the only thing that I would say right now is that everything is always evolving, and you know, just the continued support and the continued you know, working with us in the way that it is always accommodating, you know, the differences and the challenges that are coming through. I think that's the only thing that I can say. It's always almost like a different step every 6 months, every year a different, you know, a different take. And so, you know, just that continued support is the only thing that I would say at the moment, that you know, we can still carry on walking the walk together.
Constantly learning and developing, and things always change, don't they? Every 6 months, every month or every week, there's another challenge, and I think you guys do an amazing job of overcoming those as best you can.